Today's conversation is on being who you desire to be, having what you desire, as you need nothing. You do nothing to acknowledge the fact that you are already all that you desire to be. You have everything that you desire. As you acknowledge that still I am presence as being complete love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment permeates the mind, permeates the body, and you remain in your flow on the journey to actualizing your definite chief aim, your vision, whatever it is that you desire. You remain in your flow as only God alone exists, and only God alone does everything in perfect harmony for you. To prove the point, it says in Matthew 6:6, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." And then just shortly after, in Matthew 6:8, it says, "For your Father knows what you need before you ask Him." For your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. To prove the point that the Father knows, what is the Father's name? Exodus 3:14, "I am that I am. Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you." This is not pointing to a limited conceptual interpretation of the word God or I am. It's pointing to the infinite and absolute reality that is appearing here to take care of all without individual interference. To prove the point, why does it say, "For your Father knows what you need before you ask Him"? But how do you know that your Father knows what you need before you ask Him? As you return to that still I am presence, beyond thoughts, beyond emotions, beyond appearances, and by appearances I mean appearances of the physical, emotional, mental phenomena, which includes people, environment, circumstance, information, thoughts of this, thoughts of that, imaginal activity, emotions being experienced in a particular way for the individual. Beyond that, still I am. As I return back to the source and abide as I am, love, happiness, peace, bliss, and fulfillment permeate the body and permeate the mind by doing nothing. Even to suggest return back to the source is illusory. There is no separation between I and the Father. I and the Father are one. Yet the Father is infinitely greater than I. What does that mean? The Father is infinite love, infinite happiness, infinite peace, infinite bliss, infinite fulfillment. How do you know that the Father is greater than I? By abiding in that still I am presence. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment permeates the body, permeates the mind with increasing frequency on a continuous basis to higher and higher degrees. And there is no limit to the degree of that infinite love, infinite peace, infinite bliss, infinite fulfillment. I can't limit it by words, or we could say I choose not to limit it by words, by suggesting that love is only up to this degree. Happiness is only up to this degree. Peace is only up to this degree. Fulfillment is only up to this degree. Thus, I choose not to imagine limitations. I know certainly the Father knows what I need before I ask the Father in prayer. So one can say, what is the point of prayer then? Why do you need to pray if the Father knows before you ask Him? Well, great question. In the earlier stages, it can be helpful. In the earlier stages, for the individual that is identified with appearances, it can be helpful to acknowledge that they already have what they desire. They already are all that they desire to be through any form of prayer that results in the experience of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment permeating the mind and the body. But at a particular point, they can do nothing as they acknowledge that all prayer was pointing to was that love, that happiness, that peace, that bliss, that fulfillment that they already are. Thus, you are all that you desire to be. You are the love, the happiness, the peace, the bliss, the fulfillment that you desire. And you also realize that as you abide in that still I am present, that only God alone exists. Only God alone exists in perfect harmony. Only God alone exists as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So I need not do anything to convince myself anymore. I do not need approval, validation, or confirmation from this world. That I am presence is the approval. That I am presence is the validation. That I am presence is the confirmation, and it transcends the appearances of this world. So what practical benefits does this have for the individual? The individual that prayed, the individual that returned to the source, that still I am presence, abided as that still I am presence, to allow God to take care of everything. Thy will be done. What benefit does it have for the individual? Well, it is experienced as the individual being in flow. I am still, yet I appear to flow. I appear to flow here. I appear to flow in this conversation with you without restriction. So, for example, I teach this to entrepreneurs. They may say, I have what I desire. I already am all that I desire to be. Then that they get an insight to prospect or perform lead generation or client acquisition. They are perfect as they are now. They are perfect love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and everyone and everything appears to be in harmony with them. If they remain in their flow by acknowledging that I am presence to be all that they desire, which they can access if they seem to be separate from it, which is an illusion, they walk over to the prospect and start a conversation with them. They perform their lead-generating activities without resistance. They engage in conversations with a client or a prospect and not consider there to be illusions of separation, because that's unreal, as only God alone exists. There's no I versus I, you versus me. It's I with you with me, as ultimately only God alone exists, playing out the perfect role for everyone. Everyone plays the perfect role of God and plays it as individual ways to be in harmony. Prospecting flows, lead generation flows, client acquisition flows without resistance. So the individual claims to be all that they desire to be, to have all that they desire. Yet when they're in the presence of another individual, whether it be prospecting or they're involved with lead generation activities or they're in sales presentation or client acquisition conversations, can the other individual trigger them? What is being triggered is a belief in mind, a condition placed upon consciousness, to be released. How so? How does one practically do it? By doing nothing, releasing that identification, by not identifying with that illusory thought. The conversation flows. The individual might condition consciousness. It needs to go this way in order for the business to succeed. If it goes that way, then it does not. They may say, I need to acquire this client in order to be happy, which is illusory. That still I am presence is everything that they desire to experience in life. They found it within themselves. They found it in the form of desire, which points to the fact that they are fulfilled. Desire means fulfillment. Desire means being. Desire is a simple acknowledgement of having, like prayer. Pray as though you have received, and it will be yours. They acknowledge that I am fulfilled in the moment. I am that love. I am that peace. I am that bliss. I am that happiness. I am that complete fulfillment. Not because of this or that condition. Condition dissolves, conversation flows. If it goes in this direction, great. If it goes in that direction, great. Having built 3 successful businesses, you inevitably actualize the vision. Yet what we're talking about here is on the way to actualizing the vision, and you don't even need to pray to acknowledge that the vision will be actualized. The Father knows before you ask in prayer. It happens. It was always happening. The individual thinking in terms of separation from what they desire to be, from having what they desire, from lacking love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, all of that which is found in that still I am presence, thinks they need to do this or that in order to get. They need to visualize it to be a particular way, and they need to auto-suggest it to be a particular way. Those things can be helpful. As we mentioned, prayer can be helpful. Yet, at a particular point, you acknowledge, you're at that point now, you acknowledge that desire points to having. Desire points to being. In other words, what I'm saying is that the way you exist now, perfect as you are now, is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. The individual stops looking for approval, validation, confirmation in this world that appears because they acknowledge that they are. They acknowledge that I am. They acknowledge that I am, that still I am presence, to be where they experience profound, unconditional, unlimited, infinite love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So they don't need the prospect to say this or that. The conversation flows. Everything flows. The prospects flow. They flow. Everything appears to flow, to be in harmony. And the business success actualizes. At times we see that, let's say, if you speak with a new prospect and then you mention to them that, hey, I've got an opportunity you might be interested in. If they say no, that maybe later on they come back. You turn to another prospect and you start a conversation. They move forward with the deal. Then the other prospect that said no, maybe a week or two, comes back. You do 5 prospecting sessions a day, and now there's a compounding effect that happens. This is what I teach entrepreneurs. I say, set a quota. 5 prospecting sessions a day, for example. Generate 3 or 4 or 5 new leads a day. Have 1 or 2 sales conversations a day. Have 3 or 4 presentations a week or whatever to a broader audience to generate more leads. Consistently, that is what you genuinely desire to do. The Father gives the plans, hunches, inspirations within. You receive it within via intuition. If you received it within, then you allow yourself to play the role that you play, and your prospects, your leads, your clients play their role in perfect harmony. You don't have to force yourself to do nothing physically. That is not what's being referred to when I say do nothing. When I say do nothing, what I'm referring to is do nothing inwardly to acknowledge the fact that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. How do you practically do nothing to acknowledge the fact that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, which from the premise of being perfect as you are, body flows, prospecting flows, lead generation flows without resistance, client acquisition without resistance. The business success happens and you experience a flow-based journey, a first-class journey to the first-class destination. How do you do nothing? By returning to that still I am presence. If the individual feels triggered by appearances, it's not the appearances. It is the individual identified with programming in mind, the illusory programming that belongs to the illusory world that is to be renounced. That illusory programming in mind represents the illusory world. It's not real. Where's this illusory world? The individual is identified with illusory programming in mind, and they can release identification. No shame, no condemnation. by not identifying. Right away, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment permeates the body. And mind is purified from that illusory programming, that condition placed upon consciousness, that condition that's generating resistance to prospecting, resistance to lead generation, resistance to client acquisition. And they flow. Conversations flow. They see a prospect they want to start a conversation with, they walk over in a flow-based way and start a conversation. If it goes in this direction, great. If it goes in that direction, great. It does not deny the fact that you already have what you desire, that you already are all that you desire to be. Because if I thought that whatever appeared was denying the fact, that's an I thought. That belongs to the individual. I am beyond the individual that can think this versus that. I am perfect love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. As you are perfect love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, we exist perfectly together. We are perfect love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment together, beyond the illusory programming in mind that suggests lack, limitation, doing things outwardly that don't need to be done, that are just automatic responses or reactivity from that programming. We don't identify with that programming. We release identification. You know, if you are about to identify with a thought of lack, of limitation, of not being who you desire to be, of not having what you desire, as you go about the day-to-day initiatives on the journey to actualizing the vision, you can be as you are. That is why I say entrepreneurship is a spiritual catalyst. This is not about pretending to be. This is not about faking to be. This is not about trying to be. This is not about spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. That still I am presence is the love, the happiness, the peace, the bliss, the fulfillment that you were seeking for your entire life. And whatsoever things you desire are pointers to the fact that you already have all that you desire. So that still I am presence is all that you desire. You return to the source, that still I am presence, to dissolve this illusory programming in mind so that your ideal life, which is you are perfect as you are perfect love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. There's only you living your ideal life. That's reality. The illusory realities are a result of identification to illusory programming. How do you know they're illusory realities? Because identification to these illusory beliefs result in suffering. These identifications to these illusory beliefs in mind seem to suggest an individual needs to do this or that, which is not what they genuinely desire to do. When I work with entrepreneurs, I don't say you have to do prospecting, you have to do lead generation in this way, you have to do client acquisition in whatever way. Their way is the best way. They already know the way. You already know the way. To prove the point, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. So how do you discover the plans? How do you let things be beyond the plans to appear without interference, to be in harmony? By accessing the wisdom within that is revealed as you abide in that still I am presence. As I mentioned, that still I am presence is everything the individual was seeking for their whole life, although they may seem to be seeking outwardly for that which they have inwardly. They seek to do something in order to be outwardly, rather than acknowledging that I am who I desire to be inwardly and allow it to unfold in a flow-based way outwardly. All these things added onto you. Seek ye first the kingdom. And all these things added onto you. So no shame, no condemnation. The seeking stops as you acknowledge that you already have all that you desire. You already are all that you desire to be. Then plans, hunches, inspirations may be received within, and things appear to change on their own. I don't get involved. There is no interference. I remain in my flow effortlessly. Why is it that the individual can remain in their flow effortlessly after acknowledging that still I am presence is all that they desire? It represents all that they desire. It is the love, the happiness, the peace, the bliss, the fulfillment. It permeates the body and permeates the mind. So how then does the individual remain in flow? They may do this, they may not do this. Everything appears to flow. People, environment, circumstance, information appears to be in harmony. Everything flows. Why is that the case? Because the seeking has stopped. They have found the kingdom. They acknowledge that still I am presence is where they return to for love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. It doesn't mean that they don't experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment with this world here. They certainly do, as ultimately there is no inner and outer. There's only God and everything appearing to be in harmony. And by that I mean, only God alone exists. And if only God alone exists, and everything is happening perfectly as it does, beyond the illusions of separation. The individual only releases those illusions of separation, those conditions placed upon consciousness and mind. They dissolve, and then reality is experienced. And so the individuals flow. As they have conversations, there's no thoughts, illusions of separation-based experiences, no conflict. Conflict is an indication of identification. It seems to suggest that there's another person to fight with, another person to argue with. Only God alone exists, and besides God, there is no other. That's why I refer to it as illusory programming of the matrix. The illusory programming of the matrix, if identified with, results in the individual seeking outwardly for fulfillment, which is illusory. You still experience fulfillment. You still experience love. You still experience peace. You still experience bliss. You still experience happiness. Only you experience it with, or more accurately put, you realize that as you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, you experience it with all these things added on to you, with or without the conditions. So what I mean by that is, again, go back to the prospecting. If the prospect says yes, happiness. If they say no, happiness. This might not make sense for the individual that has been deeply identified with conditions. This might not make any sense. That's okay. No shame, no condemnation. Return to that still I am presence, and that programming dissolves, and then it is experienced. Prospect says no, great. If the prospect says yes, great. It doesn't restrict your flow. The flow restrictors are illusory. So to remain in your flow and experience a flow-based first-class journey to actualizing your vision, dissolve that illusory programming of the matrix, which is illusory, that illusory programming in mind that is suggesting to look outwardly for conditions to be met in order to experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Conditions do not need to be met outwardly to experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Inwardly and outwardly are ultimately one. As you acknowledge that still I am presence is complete love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, it is experienced inwardly and outwardly as one. There is no separation. Then it's not me versus you, us versus them, this versus that. It's me and you. It's us together. It's this and that in perfect harmony. And then there's no confusion in mind, because the confusion may be, should I do this versus that? Should I talk to this person versus that person? There is no this versus that. There is no this person versus that person, as ultimately only God alone exists. In perfect love, in perfect happiness, in perfect peace, in perfect bliss, in perfect fulfillment. So when it says, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him, this makes perfect sense now. Even logically to the mind, this makes perfect sense. And as you experience it, it's, oh yeah, experientially, this makes sense. And it's up to the individual to dissolve that resistance. See, as mentioned, I don't tell the individual that they need to prospect, they need to do client acquisition, they need to do lead generation in this way and that way. It happens naturally as the individual releases the conditions. So we just keep releasing the conditions. Now, I don't even release the conditions. The Father within doeth the work. I just remain as I am. I acknowledge that they already are, no matter what they say. That seems to suggest lack of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Nothing they say seems to suggest love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment is lacking. That would be a result of illusory programming in mind, which is not real and does not exist. Only God alone exists. And so what appears is the programming dissolves. The programming is dissolving worldwide. I trust you witnessed this as well. If the individual identifies forcefully because they think that they will lose something with the programming, if they identify with it, they just generate more suffering. Release that identification. Acknowledge that still I am presence is all that you desire, is a representation of everything that you desire. It is the love, the happiness, the peace, the bliss, the fulfillment. And you can do nothing. You don't need to do this or that to return to that still I am presence. Prove the point. What do you need to do in between in order to access that still I am presence, other than nothing? If you do something, you might form an identity around it. You might think, okay, I did this thing, and then I access the still I am presence. Or I did this 5 or 10 or 15 things, and then I got into the being I am, which is an illusory way of thinking, as only God alone exists. You can do nothing. Nothing. You could say, you could just relax. You could just be still. And love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment permeates the body, as the Father knows what you need before you ask Him. Does the Father really know what I need before I ask the Father? Return to the source. What is the Father's name? Exodus 3:14. I am that I am. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. See, if you remove this illusory, limited concepts of God, the illusory concepts that seem to add all these steps in order to access that still I am presence, you access that still I am presence. That's it. You abide as you are. And then what happens is the individuals stabilize. They remain abiding in that still I am presence. So then love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillments permeates the various environments, the various tasks, the various initiatives, the various conversations with the leads, the prospects, etc., unconditionally. They experience the reality, which is not affected by appearances. Only I, the individual, can suggest being lack or being affected by appearance. I am beyond that. I am not affected by appearances. I am not. Only I, which is illusory, can suggest lacking or being affected by appearances. Dissolve that I thought. And all that remains is perfect love, perfect happiness, perfect bliss, perfect peace, perfect fulfillment, appearing more so as it was in the beginning, now, and ever shall be. As it was in the beginning, now, and ever shall be. Appearing more and more so with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further knowledge. You could say, I can do nothing to acknowledge that I am, as the Father knows what I ask for in prayer before I ask for it in prayer, as I already am all that I desire to be. Thus I already have all that I desire. As I remain as I am, body appears to flow, people appear to flow, everything appears to flow in perfect harmony, to actualize the visions, the prophecies that were given to me by God.